welcome back to Season 3 of Driving Performance. I'm your co-host, Tom Shea, the co-founder and CEO of Agile Media Group.
And I'm your other co-host, Max Flannery. I'm also a co-founder and as president of Agile Media Group.
And our next guest needs no introduction, Brian Rappaport. So by way of introduction, Brian Rappaport's the founder and CEO of Quan Media Group, a boutique out-of-home advertising agency that's redefining how modern brands go beyond the screen and into the real world. Since launching Quan, Brian has become the go-to out-of-home strategist for the who's who of D2C and challenger brands. His first-year roster alone included Away, Banza, Dagne Dover, Daily Harvest, Grow, and hundreds of others. Brian's philosophy is that out-of-home isn't just about big budgets and broad awareness anymore. It can be highly targeted, creative, and measurable. In fact, he prides himself on a personalized, data-driven approach that focuses on each brand's unique audience and goals rather than the old buy as many boards as you can mentality. With over a decade in the out-of-home industry, Brian brings deep expertise with a fresh, flexible look. Quan Media Group is quick, flexible, budget agnostic, and real good, as he cutely puts it. He's also known for his energy, his insane responsiveness, and for pushing out-of-home beyond its traditional limits. Brian Rappaport, welcome to Season 3.
Thanks for having me. You nailed everything. I don't have anything else to add for that intro.
So I want to first introduce the structure of the podcast. So as we are in the back of a truck today, the theme is there's going to be a few stops along the route. So stop one is going to be the personal story. We're going to talk about all the things pre-agency life, pre-out-of-home that led you to where you are today. Stop 2 is going to be the professional story. So diving in post-grad, what was your experience in the agency world? What led you to leave and ultimately found Quan? Stop 3 is a game we call the Hot Box. It's a tongue-in-cheek version of the hot seat, a this or that style question game. And stop 4 will be the outro. We'll wrap. We'll send you on your way. You ready to wrap?
I'm ready to rock. Let's do this.
All right. First question I like to start with before we get into the personal story is, for the audio-only listeners, how would you describe what is happening right now?
All right. So I'm in a glass box truck in the middle of University Place, outside of a PF Chang's, heart of New York City, I would say. A lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, a lot of people walking by and staring and taking photos. This is by far and away the coolest place I've ever filmed anything. Podcast, content, anything.
I love it. All right, so let's dive deep, Brian. I want to, I know your professional career quite well at this point, but I don't think I personally know the personal backstory. So why don't we start at the beginning? Where are you from? Tell us about the family. Tell us about the upbringing, all the things out-of-home and pre-Quan.
Yeah, I'm a native Long Islander. I spent half my childhood in Roslyn, Long Island, and then I moved over to Jericho. It's like kind of a dual residency, as I like to say. Went to Jericho High School, graduated, and went to Towson University, which at the time, not a popular college. I just could not pull off College Park and wanted to stay somewhat close to home. Went and visited a friend, fell in love with the campus, and now it's popular and also has a gorgeous redevelopment there. But went to Towson with the sole goal of getting a job in pro sports. And the young Brian was sportscaster, play-by-play, NBA, Knicks, and over time, and I don't want to account this to laziness, as you hear the stories of people that start their sportscasting careers in Albany and Oklahoma City, and I just didn't want to do all that. I wanted to jump right in. So when I went to college and decided to major in mass comm and minor in PR and also focus on sports communication, I was like, okay, maybe sports marketing, sports PR allows me to kind of take my love for pro sports, specifically basketball, and do something like that. So I went to Towson University to major in mass comm, again, focused on sports communication, took a bunch of PR classes, and was like, this is going to be great. This is what I will do for my career. I got an incredible internship with ABC Sports in Baltimore, and I was there. I was going to Ravens games and literally interviewing players, watched Eli Manning's debut for the Giants against the Ravens, which was kind of surreal. Was in the Orioles locker room, went to a University of Maryland College Park game against UNC. It was awesome, to the point where I got my credit and then did it for nothing for another semester because I felt it was really good to kind of have that experience. And then I graduated and I was like, okay, I'm just going to email everyone in pro sports in the tri-state area. Knicks, Yankees, Giants, it didn't really matter. And I did that. And there were some responses. There's one response that always stuck with me. Jonathan Sopranowitz, who is...
Shout out Jonathan
Sopranowitz, who I've not spoken to in God knows how long, but head of the Knicks PR at the time. And he would write back, we don't have a job, but, keep reaching out. Really like your resume. Another cool story, growing up in Roslyn Middle School, my 7th grade Spanish teacher was Marcia Rovell. Her son is Darren Rovell. Darren Rovell is one of the biggest sports business personalities out there. Cold emailed him. He was at ESPN at the time. took the time to call me back and sat on the phone with me for a full hour just giving advice about working in pro sports. Did not know me, but that forever and ever will stay with me. And like Darren's had an up and down social media tenure, and I love him. I will always be pro Rovell.
Yeah.
So I worked at an Italian restaurant in Jericho for my first year out of college because I couldn't get a job, and finally ran into a job at NBA TV in Secaucus, New Jersey. And that was basically a temp job for a full year, but it meant going to Secaucus every day, or almost every day, getting there by 5 o'clock, staying through all of the NBA games, whether to the very last Pacific Coast game ending at 1 a.m., taking notes, doing the bottom line of NBA TV, so I would decide what stats went on the bottom line. I would help out all of the sports broadcasters that were on NBA TV, which is pretty ridiculous for me as a big fan. I'd sit with Ahmad Rashad, Patrick Ewing would come in, he was on TV. Sat there for a year and just had a blast. I don't know how like beneficial it was for first job out of college, but like really loved it. Yeah, good exposure. Loved it. Would drive home to Long Island every night at like 1 a.m. Wouldn't have to be in the office the next day until like 4. So really had the day to like do what I wanted. Also worked at the Italian restaurant on the side, so I made some good money. Year went by, job ended. There was no like pickup of my contract, and then I was back to like looking for a job again. Went nuts and went back to applying for all these jobs in pro sports and came really close to landing one that was above my experience level at NBA's headquarters in the city. Really thought I had it. They brought me to the second round of interviews. It was for a PR role. Did a homework assignment over a weekend, and I'll never forget, I was like on the LIE driving from somewhere, was in traffic, checked my phone, which you should not do. I do not do that anymore, but I did it. And remember seeing the email come in from the woman that I interviewed with telling me that they had gone with another candidate, and it was like the first time in my life I was like really bummed out. Normally I'm optimistic, and I'm like, whatever. I was just like, this sucks. And then that kind of leads me to media, because my best friend, Craig Newman, was working at Zenith Media at the time. He was 5 months in, and he's like, Brian, come interview here. I'm working at this ad agency. We go to a lot of fun parties. We get taken to a lot of free lunches. We do newspaper advertising, is how he described it. He's like, and we're hiring.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, time to get a real job. Time to get health insurance. Time to get a 401k.
Yeah.
Let me do this, and I will figure out the pro sports thing. And that kind of led me to media.
All right. So before we get too deep into the media transition, a lot of sports fandom, and the New York community thanks you. But like, where did this come from? Like, because it sounds like there was conviction at like a very early age, and we spoke to a lot of folks on this season where it's like, yeah, I'm 17, I don't really know what I'm going to do. But it seems like there was conviction early, and so is it family? Like, what were the catalysts for such interest in that category?
I have to be honest, it was definitely a lot more NBA than anything else over the last 20 years. It's migrated into MLB also. But my dad, who worked in the Garment Center forever, like, I grew up with him taking me to Knicks games from like 1991. So I fell in love with the Knicks and with basketball. I collected basketball cards. My dad would take me to 6 to 7 games a year. He would scalp tickets because we couldn't really afford them. And I amassed this enormous basketball collection. I would play basketball in the leagues in Roslyn and Jericho, and I stunk. I was not good, but I loved it, so I would play anyway. And I fell in love with the NBA. I'd play NBA Live, and I would like do play-by-play for the entire game. I loved it. And it was like always going to be something in pro sports. I wanted to be an actor for a while, and I don't know. I bounced back and forth, but it was always going to be pro sports. Specifically, like I envisioned myself like working for the Knicks, because my dad, basically raised me around basketball and around the Knicks, taking me to games, and I grew up with this amazing team that every year was supposed to contend for a championship. So it kind of like made for the perfect storm for a career. And after a 23-year gap, now we're back in that position again. So it's exciting, but yeah.
All right, and then I want to ask about the Rappaport parents.
Yeah.
So obviously there's the love for sports, but have you taken, one, what did they do? What was the upbringing like? Mm-hmm. And two, have you taken, what do you think you get for each?
Yeah, that's a good question. And no one, done a few podcasts and things like this, no one really ever asked. So my parents are great. They got divorced when I was 12, and I will be very honest and very open about it. Like, my mom basically raised 3 boys essentially by herself, 3 teenage boys at least. My dad was great, he was involved, but it just was not a good divorce, and he was not in a good place. So I will say that I got from my father, like, the energy, the excitement, and definitely, like, love for family, but, like, hard work, passion, like, doing anything for your children, like, really just, like, trying to be an overall good person all came from my mom, because my mom really did, like, everything for me and my brothers to, like, befriending the #1 woman in financial aid at Towson so I can go out of state. Right. To the point like where she literally took her to lunch when she came to visit me, to like, working all hours of the night for an electrical company, doing deals, with Asia because that's what made money. It was able to send me and my brothers to like sleep like him. So yeah, I mean, look, great parents, fortunately both remarried, love my extended family. There's not like, oh, I hate my stepmom and all of this. Like it's a wonderful situation, but yeah, we're like, me and my brothers are definitely mama's boys, and I have two younger brothers who are twins, both in out of home. One is CEO of Big Outdoor, so
shout him out. Shout him out.
Ian Rappaport, CEO of Big Outdoor, also star of Bud Light's 2014 Super Bowl commercial. And you Google Ian up for whatever, and you will run into a slew of very funny content. He's great. There's no nepotism there, but it is fun to work in the same industry as your brother, and then his twin Brandon works with me at Quan. Longtime industry veteran, was at Kinetic WPP for a long time, and we found a way to work peacefully and coexistingly as brothers, and he crushes it, for me. So it's really awesome because I'm super close to both of them. So to be able to share the same industry with them, whether it's happy hours, whether it's industry conferences, we're always all there.
Yeah.
And then obviously on the weekends and then other times like we're together. So it's just been really, really exciting.
How much younger are they?
3 years.
3 years.
But they are my best friends. It's awesome. It sounds cheesy. It's just a lot of fun. We share a lot of the same mutual friends. It's pretty awesome.
No, it's very clear. I mean, when you see you guys interact at conferences and stuff like that, it's very clear how close you guys are. How was it growing up with two brothers?
It was fun. I mean, look, we had our fair share of fighting. We don't really fight anymore, which is pretty awesome. Like, it would be, I would play one of them in NBA Live, I would lose, and I would literally take the controller and throw it and break it, and I would get in trouble by my mom. I would play them like 2-on-1 and pick up a lot. And I would beat them up until, I was like 14 or 15. And then obviously they started beating me, which makes sense, 2-on-1. And then they started beating me individually. And like that led to me like punting the basketball over the fence at the park we were playing, like losing my shit. It was very funny. Look, they're both better than me in basketball. It took a while for me to get around to accepting that. But overall, like a lot of really fun stories and a lot more good times than bad times. And then especially when you go through something like a really tumultuous divorce, it's really nice to have like close siblings to be there with you. So yeah, we have a lot of fun stories, but it's pretty awesome that we like rarely fight, and if we do, it's kind of like short-term memory.
Yeah,
it's like adult problems.
Hey, before we get into the professional life, you have one of the most fun marital stories I've ever heard, and I want to platform it. So tell us about it. I know it.
No, I love this. I'm just throwing out shout-outs everywhere. So I'm all about like try something once, except for seafood and sushi, but that's a separate story. And look, like I was the last of my friends to really meet somebody and fall in love, and I was in a long-term relationship for a year. It was like my first time. It just didn't work out. And I was walking on the street in 2018 in the Upper East Side and bumped into an old college friend who asked if I was single. I told her that I was, and she's like, I'm setting you up with my best friend. She's a matchmaker. She has a show on Bravo. Her name is Lori Saslow, Project Soulmate. And I'm like, Paige, I'm not paying for a matchmaker. I'm on Bumble, Tinder, Hinge. And she's like, no. Meet with her. Trust me. Like she needs some good guys. So I said, why not? Met with her, told her what I was looking for in a girl, and was basically like, set me up on as many dates as you want. I don't care. Like I'm just ready to meet somebody. So after talking to the matchmaker's concierge, they just started shooting bios at me. You don't really see the picture. You just get a bio on the girl. You say yes. They make a reservation for you, and you show up. And went on like 2 or 3 dates in 1 week, and they were all fine, but it was definitely like one and done. Like you just knew at that point. I wasn't wasting their time, I wasn't wasting my time.
Right.
And finally, Lori, who's become a friend of mine, texts me and is like, I have a great girl for you. She is from Roslyn, Long Island. So I said, whoa. She just moved back to New York City from Florida, recently divorced, no children, really big family person. And I was like, I have to know her. She's from Roslyn. She sent me the bio. I didn't. And I was like, yeah, let's go on a date. The fun part was that she lived on 63rd and 2nd, and I was on 65th. So I knew the date spot would be mutual, close by.
What was it?
It was at Felice Wine Bar on 64th and 1st.
There we go.
And I was like, look, if this stinks, like, at least I'll be near my apartment. Like, it'll be a Friday night. I'll go out after. Okay. And we went, and I got there and waited for Jen to get there. And she got there, and it wasn't like love at first sight. We were talking. We're enjoying ourselves. We know a lot of the same people. And midway through the date, no joke, she's like, I'm sorry, I don't want to be rude, but I need to check the score of the NBA Finals. And I'm like, whoa. And I was like, if you're checking the score of the NBA Finals, I'm checking the Yankees score because they were playing the Mets that night. Brett Gardner hit a home run to put them ahead. They beat the Mets. They beat Jacob deGrom. I was in a great mood. I'm like, I saw that they were winning, so it infinitely changed my mood for the better. And we had a great date and walked her to 63rd and then went to my brothers who lived on 59th. and texted her on Sunday and was like, let's go out again. And she's like, definitely. And I made a reservation. And she's like, I actually wanted to go somewhere else, which no girl's ever done on a date. She, which is very much her personality now, was like, I have this great speakeasy, let's go. And after that, it was like second date, third date. And like by like the fourth or fifth date, I was just like, this girl is different. We knew a lot of the same people. We found out our parents had tried to set us up in the past, but it wasn't the right time for either of us. And she's a diehard Knicks fan. I've turned her into a diehard Yankee fan to the point where, like, if I am out with clients and the Yankees are playing, I'll check my phone, I'll get a text from her, and it'll just say Judge. And that just means that means he homered. Or she'll be like, Jazz, exclamation point. And I'll be like, oh, Jazz Chisholm must have done something. So she's just incredible. I proposed to her in the locker room of MSG because it's the first place I told her I loved her. And she's just, I'm very big. It's always about my career at Quan and out of home. But like, if you are someone who has not met someone yet and you're waiting to do that, like, just be patient. Like, there's someone for everyone, and just don't rush it. Like, let it kind of come to you, but also be open and like say yes and do things that you normally wouldn't do. So, always a fun story to share, and super fortunate. Yeah, and now we have a 2.5-year-old. So yeah.
All right, Brian. So stop 2 of the show, the professional story. So you come from the big agency world, and now you run one of the most prolific indie agencies. I want to talk about the transition from the sportscasting career and meeting Craig and Craig, bringing you to that side of the industry. So why don't we start there? Let's talk about revisit that conversation, how you ended up in that world, and then let's talk about your experience, how you navigated through this.
Yeah. Craig tells me to come to Zenith Media. I'm like, let's do it. So he sets me up with HR. They bring me in for an interview. It's for a broadcast position. So I go and interview with this woman, and the entire time she's on her BlackBerry. She's not even looking up at me. I'm like, there's definitely no way I'm getting this job. I go home, HR emails me, he didn't get the job. And like, it was kind of weird. I just emailed her back. I was like, do you have another role open? I just feel like I wasn't really given enough attention by the woman I interviewed with. And she was like, actually we do, in print, which is where Craig worked. So I went in, met with Andy Katsidas, who is a friend to this day and was an awesome boss. And I'm in his office and I'm talking about,
what year is this?
This is 2007, October of 2007, and he has all this Mets paraphernalia on the wall, and I'm like, oh, I'm a big Mets fan, I love Jose Reyes, and I'm like, and he's like, oh, that's great, and go home, and like maybe a few days later, they're like, we're gonna hire you as like an assistant print negotiator. I'm like, perfect, I got a job, I'm thrilled. I go in there, I have no idea what to do. Meet my boss at the time, this guy from Staten Island, who to this day is one of my like close friends. Like John Tolomeri, if I did not have him as a boss when I started, like my direct supervisor, I may not even be in this industry anymore. Like, and I'll explain in a minute. Like, I got him, he's this awesome dude from Staten Island, just so nice, like welcoming, and anyone who knows him in the industry, they're like, what? But it's just his personality. He has this awesome dry sense of humor. And John, I get in there and I'm like, my first job is to like pull out Verizon Fios ads from like a ton of actual newspapers. I'm like, file. And I'm like, this is so boring. I really was not loving this job at Zenith. And this is the craziest thing. Maybe a week or two into this job, all of a sudden, I get an email from Madison Square Garden that an assistant PR coordinator position opens up for the Knicks. And I'm like, this is it. I'm going to get this job. Craig was upset with me because if I stayed for 3 months, he got a pretty big referral fee. And I'm like, Craig, I love you.
Sorry,
but like,
Craig.
I'm like, he's like, you're going to make me look bad. I put my neck out for you. And I'm like, this is my career. So I go and interview with the Knicks. And I just remember meeting Jonathan Sopranowitz and sitting there, and I'm like, I am definitely getting this job. Like, I had one round of interviews, they had me back, and they're like, come up with like a media kit, like a mock media kit with like stats and info, and I went all out. And I remember like sitting with Jonathan in the actual stands of MSG, just talking about like passion for the game, everything. And this is like in December. I got the Zenith job in November, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get this job. And a week goes by, and 2 weeks go by, and I'm following up with HR, and they're like, we're still deciding, and it turns into January. And a funny thing happens. All of a sudden, and this is definitely, I'd say 80% John Tolomeri and 20% the people I worked with, I start really liking the job at Zenith. I'm like, this isn't the most flashy job, but like, we are going to a lot of cool shit. Like, the Wall Street Journal has a suite for a concert. And I'm working with like these awesome guys, CJ Arnado, Derek Schaap, who are like icons and out of home now. I'm like, they just like take me in. So like, my social life is getting better. And I'm kind of like, this is a lot of fun. And more weeks go by, I still don't hear back from MSG. And finally, February rolls around, and I interviewed in like November, and they're like, sorry, the position's been filled. And like, normally you would expect me to be pissed, and I was actually so relieved. I was like, thank God, because I did not want to have to take that job, resign at Zenith, leave them in a lurch. I'm like, you know what, let me run with this. And look, I don't know who got the job. I have a feeling that someone knew somebody to get that job. There was no one that was better than me for that job. But like, things happen for a reason. And at that moment, I was like, all right, the competitive nature of me took over. I'm like, if I'm going to stay here for a while, I'm going to be really good at what I do. I'm just going to be the best at what I can do. How good can you be at like placing newspaper ads for Verizon Fios? But I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make John's life easy because I'm working for him. And I'm just going to crush. And I went out there and I started negotiating newspaper ads and all of these print ads. And just kind of was like, let me be very good at this specific job. And, you know, we'll see what happens. And that's kind of like, that was like my entry into like the agency world. And I ended up staying at Zenith for 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
7 years. So how did your role change over those 7 years at Zenith?
It was like whatever you needed me to do, I would do. Because again, wanted to be a people pleaser. One of my bosses happy with me, and I worked for some incredible bosses there. So at one point, they moved me to sports sponsorship. Worked for a great dude, John Turner, who's also still around and who's amazing at what he does. And they had me basically evaluating like, is this sponsorship deal worth it for any of Zenith's clients, Toyota, Verizon, etc. Got to work on the MSG Chase deal, which was pretty sick. So in a way, I did work in pro sports.
Yeah.
And then they won Sonic Drive-In, Zenith, and they're like, we need all hands on deck for out of home. And that was my first time I had ever gotten into out of home. And that's when I was more so working like with John, not really for him. And they moved me onto Paul Lenhart's team. Paul is now also one of my closest friends, and we still work together. And basically just got thrown into placing like ads for Sonic Drive-In across all of these markets, teaching myself how to buy and plan out of home. And I was like, this is a lot of fun. I think I really just want to do this. And like from Sonic came like other Zenith clients, Caesars, Delta, Verizon. And I was like, I really want to do this. And then a funny thing happened as such in the holding company world. Zenith started to lose some business. They tried to like have me buy spot radio and TV. It was like year 7. I'm like starting to think about my career long term. And I'm like, this sucks. I'm staying here because I love my boss, Paul. I love who I work with. But like, you know, they're paying me what I should be paid. Every year I get my raise, and like bosses love me, and I was whatever. But there was no progression professional wise. Like I didn't have a team underneath me. I didn't feel like I was learning from a managerial standpoint. And I was like, I want to only work in out of home. So such came, I guess, part 2 of 3 of like the professional journey, which was moving on to Rappaport and IPG.
Yeah, and so tell us how Rappaport and IPG comes together.
All things happen for a reason. Verizon had a job opening at the time for someone on Time Warner. And that was one of the very few agencies on my shortlist I would leave for. Out of home, you kind of know reputation of agencies. Verizon always has had a good one.
Right.
Went there, interviewed, also thought I got that role. Also interviewed at the same time at Posterscope. I was really kind of just like ready to go. And Rapport had just opened an office in New York. They were a UK-based agency.
Yep.
And a lot of people were talking about them. I didn't really know much about them. They were like, they have this awesome boss there. Keep your ears open. A job opened up for me there, and it was a lateral move. So I'm like, come back to me when you have an associate media director role open. I'm not doing the lateral thing. Like 3 months later, they started doing basically all of the buying for IPG's internal agencies. And that mean they needed an AMD role. So the same HR woman called me and was like, we have an AMD role. And I went and met both bosses at the time, Chris Ferranti, Mike Cooper, at Pershing Square Cafe, because I was not going into that office. I knew 3 of the 7 people that worked at Rapport at the time.
Yeah.
Left that interview like, holy shit, I'm getting this job. For real. I was like, I remember like gliding back to Zenith. I was so invigorated and encouraged. Sure enough, like 24 hours later, they offered me the job.
All right, fine. There's been a couple moments where it's like I was positive, I got it.
No, but that was all like.
Also, the last name, Rapport,
Yeah,
Rappaport, I mean,
that's a whole other issue. But resigned from Zenith, really emotional, sad for me, sad for them.
Yeah.
And went to Rapport to be an AMD. I went from a team of like 50 and a company of like 400. Rapport was like, there was 7 of us in a small glass office in like an IPG office in 40th and 3rd.
Like this box.
Yeah, like this, basically like where we're filming right now. First day there, I'm like, I am in love.
Yeah.
And I was in love. The whole 4.5 years I was at Rapport, I always say like, and this is not to be offensive, Zenith to me was high school. It was great.
Yeah.
Rapport was college. Like at Rapport, I learned how to manage, I learned how to supervise, I learned how to think more strategically, more analytically. I worked on some of the most insane pieces of business, and that is where I kind of started the rest of my professional life. Like that is, without Rapport, there was no Quan. I just, the 4.5 years, I mean, I've made some of my closest personal friends there, including, which we'll touch on, like people that work with me now.
Yeah.
It was just, the grass isn't always greener, and I waited 7 years to make a jump, and it was worth the full 7 years. I mean, Zenith was amazing, but Rapport was just utterly incredible.
So why was, like, how would you categorize them differently? And like, why was Rapport so successful at attracting those brands and those big deals?
It was kind of like Rapport's role, right, was like, we were the out-of-home arm for IPG. So any of IPG's agencies, Media Hub, Hill Holiday, Initiative, they would win big pieces of business. We would handle all of the out-of-home strategy, buying and planning. And we like slotted in as like, a sister agency. So we would sometimes participate in the pitch. We were really good at what we did. There was like 7 of us in the beginning in 2015 that just were like so passionate about out-of-home, loved working together, loved our agency. Mike Cooper created the best culture I've seen in any workplace from
Shout out Mike.
Shout out Mike Cooper, like who's at Do Media right now, like running shit for them there. Like sleepaway camp, pizzerias, bagel stores. Mike Cooper created the best working environment I've ever been in my life. To the point like where we were hanging out on weekends, on weekdays.
Yeah.
But like, a brief would come in for JetBlue, and it didn't matter if my team was overseeing it. Everyone would get together and be like, this is how we tackle it. This is what we do.
Yeah.
And we would just like turn around work so quickly, really crush it. And as such, the reporting got very big on the out-of-home street, and we had an influx of people that wanted to work with us. And we made it an exclusive club. Like we were just not. It didn't matter if you were out of home for 10 years. Came in and interviewed with like Mike or Chris. You had to like have the right mentality and right approach, and that's how you were getting a job. I saw people come in there who were like, quote unquote, out of home icons, and they got turned away because they just were like, yeah, I've been out of home 10 years. I'm gonna, I'd be great here.
And what was that mindset and approach? If you had to try to put it in words.
Like you actually care about the brands you work on. Like you really think meticulously about strategy. How can you help this brand see success? Oh, you're working on the Coke team. Like, how are you going to think analytically about their different brands and about their different SKUs? And like, same deal. You're working with me on like JetBlue and Royal Caribbean. Like, are you a creative thinker, or how do you approach, out of home from big picture standpoint? And like, the 2 people running the office was myself and Ashley Mole, who's now my CEO of Quan. Shout out Ashley. Also, Ashley's best trainer individuals I've ever come across. So Ashley, it didn't matter if you had no out-of-home experience. You'd come in. Some of the biggest superstars in out-of-home came in with 0 experience, but they started on Ashley's team, and she just knows how to like train properly and get the most out of people, and now they're just crushing it thanks to Ashley. I mean, I'm decent at training, but like I'm a little ADD all over the place, so like I kind of just give people leeway and go do your thing. And Ashley like sits there and really gives constructive criticism, helps mold them, and doesn't micromanage. So I think we just built something special there. And I probably would have stayed there forever if not for like what led me to Quan. Like I probably, would imagine things went right and I was there and there was no Quan. Like I would be in a leadership role at IPG right now, and like that would be fine. But I'm glad that didn't happen.
And so let's get there. The agency. No, just kidding. Like, why? So you leave Rapport, you leave the party while the party's still rocking.
Yes.
Sounds like everything was going well there. It wasn't like hey, this shit ain't working, man. You're like, hey, there's been some loss in business, and I'm kind of ready to move on. Let's talk Quan Media Group.
Yeah, there was no loss in business. Ashley did leave to take a sabbatical. That crushed me because that's like my right hand woman, and that hurt. But we had no turnover basically. Like that was also another thing. So yeah, I was leaving while the ship was still rocking. Chris Olsen came in to take Ashley's role, and he's an out-of-home icon, and he's doing great work with them now. But it's funny. I mean, I'm on the subway 5 months into my job at Rapport with Mike Cooper. We're seeing these gorgeous Casper ads for the, Casper mattress. And I go to Mike, like, I don't know who has this brand, but they're doing a lot of out-of-home. I think no agency has them. And Mike looks at me and he's like, you should call them. And I came from Zenith Media, where a new business pitch was like a 6-month process, every team involved. Oh, congrats, you win like Delta after like 7 months. And I'm like, I can just call a company that's allowed. And he's like, yeah, just email them. Emailed Philip Krim, the founder of Casper at the time, was like, who's handling your out-of-home? He's basically like, I don't know what out-of-home is, but we're running Subway through Quan Media. And he's like, why don't you come in and tell me more about what you do? So went to their office. They're like, in a loft in the garment center, maybe 60 people at the time. And I sit with Philip, and great guy, and just explaining to him why you need an out-of-home strategist and what we do and how we can help them kind of expand as they think about other markets outside of New York. And the next day he emails me, loved meeting with you. How do we work together? And I was like, holy shit, I just want a piece of business. I'm 5 months into a new job. Here I am with Casper, and I bring Casper in, and I'm in love. I'm like, this is so cool. Like Mike is like thrilled. He's like, this is awesome. And I start helping them expand outside of New York. So I'm like, all right, let's go for number 2. And I reach out to FanDuel and get to the very end of the finish line with them. They're actually looking at us for Dentsu or Posterscope, and they end up going with Posterscope. But the client at the time was like, you guys were awesome. It was a tough decision. And after that, I just go gung-ho. Daily Harvest, Figs, any D2C brand I see, I'm like, I want to work with you. Here's why. And a bunch just start coming in. I got a piece of Uber for a while before they went into the
What year is this?
This is like 2015, 16.
Okay.
Vroom.com. I got Eat24 before they were taken by Rappaport and Seamless. Like bringing in all this incremental business and like not to pat myself on the back, absolutely crushing my day job. My job description at Rappaport had zero to do with business development. It was
Right.
I was brought in to ultimately oversee every piece of out-of-home coming out of Media Hub,
Execution.
Holiday, execution.
Yeah.
Right, that was it. So I'm building out a home strategy for all these D2C brands, doing my day job. Like, again, this is going to sound incredibly cocky, but like all of the leadership at like Hill Holiday and Media Hub love me. So like our relationships with them are going really well, which is what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I'm bringing Rappaport all this incremental revenue, and I'm just having such a good time. And my name just starts getting passed around the growth community. I'm getting these emails from brands big and small. I got your name from so-and-so. This does not happen without Terry Rakovich, who is the founder.
Shout out Terry.
Terry is a close personal friend of mine and someone that I very strongly attribute to where I am now to, because she is A, one of the smartest individuals I've ever met, B, one of the best marketers I've ever come across, and C, sat with her on an Amtrak to DC to give her a market ride for Casper without knowing her, and was like, oh no, like here's a client I never met for 6 hours, I guess 2-3 hour trips. By the end of that trip, I was like, this woman is awesome. And she became just like a near and dear friend. And like, Philip obviously passed me off to her, and she's one of Casper's first hires. So like Terry sent a lot of business my way and just spoke so highly of us and still does. And after 4.5 years, I had to evaluate at Rappaport, like, all right, what is really next for me? Do I stay here? Or do I try and do this on my own? And Terry encouraged me. She was like, if you start your own thing, brands are going to come with you. They're going to come with you. They love working with you. And it was time. Like, why do it for someone else? I loved Rappaport. I loved IPG. But, like, I really believed I could do it for myself. And so I decided to just pull the ripcord. And I resigned in May of 2019, stayed through July 4th. And July 8th of 2019, I started Quan. And here we are 6 years and, like, 2 weeks later.
Yeah, so interesting.
At that point, were you married?
No, Jen and I were like serious. So it was a pretty wild year. I just moved in with her right before I resigned. She was fully supportive. My father-in-law founded and ran Lucas Luggage. It's that famous black and yellow luggage you still see on the street.
Yep.
So she came from an entrepreneurial family. She understood the passion and the dedication, and has always been supportive to the point that it's Sunday at 5, and like normally this is like, okay, time to help out with Jack, but like she's like, go do your thing. So she knew it was coming, and I told her I'm gonna make this work. Like, this is definitely gonna work.
Did you, before you pulled the ripcord, did you speak to your clients to say, will you come with me?
No, I did not. Legally, I did not. I did not. Look, I left Rappaport. The way that I feel about Rappaport, I've explained enough, and my goal was leave Rappaport with 6 weeks notice, keep winning them business, which I did. I resigned and brought in, at the time, Hermes, and I billed Hermes, Vayner Media, via Lyft. Like, I had one Lyft in tandem with Vayner as their out-of-home partner. Like, I really was just I'm a loyalty guy. You do right by me, you make me happy, I'm going to go to the end of the earth for you. And Rappaport did that for me. So
New York, baby.
That's it. So, I didn't ask my clients. I just felt that it was going to work out. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, I just truly believed, it sounds so cheesy, I truly believed in myself. And I was like, I just need to get the business part of this figured out, setting up an LLC, all that stuff. But once I'm in front of my email, I think I can do this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you already de-risked the decision by proving that you could do it over the course of the past few years.
Exactly. And brands love out of home. So I was like, that's just, and look, holding company world is very much needed for people. But like at the same time, there are a lot of brands that don't want that. And especially today, don't want that. And my goal was to go there and create a much more flexible, personalized, anecdotal way to buy and plan out of home, rooted in ad tech, rooted in strategy, but also like with more of a concierge vibe, less of like that AOR, like minimum budget vibe.
Yeah, so I'm excited to now transition more formally into Quan. So you started, was it 2019?
Yeah, 2019.
Max and I were starting Agile in 2018, and it started to actually take off in 2020, 2021. And I remember we're like trying to figure out, we're not from out of home. Like I wrote software, Max is from Deloitte, we're not from trucking. And so we're doing our best to try to educate ourselves quickly. And I remember very early in the journey, it's LinkedIn, it was Twitter, coming across Brian Rappaport, and I remember telling Max, like this guy's dialed. Like he's firing on all cylinders. Look at this brand, like his resume, his brand list, and you so quickly courted so many impressive brands. So I would love to hear from your perspective, what did the early days of Quan look like? Do you attribute all that extremely impressive success to something in particular? Because it really did go pretty goddamn quick.
No, I mean, look, I think the early days of Quan were like, look, I couldn't touch a bunch of brands because of a non-compete, so
Right.
I had to kind of like build around that. And fortunately, like there were a lot of brands that I had met through friends of friends that I was able to start. It's kind of nuts. I was able to start bringing in. So I had a few like early stage like wins, and like self-admittedly, I was waiting for my non-compete to go up, but I was like hustling nonstop. And I started in July of 2019, and in March of 2020, the pandemic rolled around. And I was like, I remember I had a massive deal with Airtable ready to go. I was happy to introduce to Airtable. They had never really used an agency. I hit it off with the client. We were building this plan that to me was just like wild. Like the budget was just wild. And more importantly, like I crushed it. I built it was me by myself, and I really built this awesome plan. And then the pandemic hit, and obviously like the client's like, we're putting this on pause, and then the client left, and I lost Airtable. But I went to my in-laws in Boca Raton with my wife for indefinite amount of time just to kind of get out of New York City. And I felt like I could have just like sat by the pool and like waited for out of home to come back around. And instead I was like, I felt too guilty. I'm like, I need to build this business. And every single day I put on jeans, put on a polo, and go into my makeshift office at my in-laws' house and would do everything from sending out newsletters to a bunch of clients, talking about foot traffic patterns to cities reopening, to working with vendors to get amazing deals of like 80 and 90% off of relevant out-of-home inventory. Obviously, it's hard to buy out-of-home when people are being told to stay in-home, but like as cities reopened, okay, like New York is having outdoor dining, here's a package of every Link NYC kiosk at an outdoor dining establishment. Like brands are like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I started to generate some like decent revenue, and the brands that were like, thanks, but no thanks, were like, as soon as this thing ends, we're coming to you. And I remember, my non-compete did end. It's always a double anniversary for me, which is really awesome because like, I got this mixed up this year, and Jen got very upset with me. Quan's anniversary is the 8th. My personal anniversary is the 9th of July. And I remember, like, my non-compete, went up, and some brands really did come over. Like, people were true to their word. It was without solicitation. They came over, and that was pretty amazing. But, like, I remember, December of 2020, I was talking to my CFO, and he's like, Brian, you may want to take out a line of credit. You may want to start to think about a loan. Like, things are a little bit slow. And I said, look, there was talk of vaccines, and there was talk of like the pandemic kind of ending. And I'm like, just give me till mid-January. Can we make it to mid-January? And then we'll reevaluate. And he's like, yeah, we can make it. I'm just giving you a heads up. Mid-January rolls around of 2021, and all of a sudden these buys start to come in. I remember like the first big one was like ZocDoc I had worked with, and we did some other work, and I have a weekly finance call, and I'm talking to my CFO, and he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, this is crazy. And I'm like, I told you, I'm like, the pandemic is being rectified. Brands are spending it out of home, and I now have the brands that have come back to me, plus all of the new brands I cultivated relationships with during the pandemic, and it just took off. Like January 2021, I just remember just being ready to rock. That's when I brought Brandon over as my first full-time employee. Ashley came over from her sabbatical and was like, I want to work with you. I don't care. Like, let me do project work first. You can't pay me. Started as project work, started as freelance work, started as part-time work. Now she's my COO. And that was it. Like, all of these brands, it just was like the perfect storm. And it just really, I don't know. It invigorated me, but it really proved to myself that, like, yes, I busted my ass so hard and really built these relationships up. And these brands were true to their word. They were coming over. And then, like, you got to remember, brand marketers, 2 years, 3 years, they're ready to move on to something new. They'd go somewhere new, leaving with their predecessor, and then I would be getting calls from their new place. And then we started to build out a foundation of legacy brands, and I am so excited to work tomorrow. It's Sunday afternoon. I'm like, there's so much going on. There's so many new brands that we're working with. It's just so exciting, and I don't know. I get somewhat emotional every once in a while when I'm by myself. I'm like, holy shit, this is actually happening. And then it's like, just non-stop work that you guys get the vibe for because you guys push. So
I appreciate it. So I want to transition a little bit, and obviously it's been so impressive. Like I've had a front row seat to it. You are someone Max and I have always looked up to and have tried to emulate. I want to talk a little bit about why you think it's been successful relative to the other options in the market, like these agencies that there's a lot of options where people can choose to place their money, and more and more they're consolidating it to Quan. And then I want to talk about how you approach out of home and planning, and how you get into the mind of Brian Rappaport a little bit into these media plans as to how what information you take in? What are you trying to think about such that you're not just a vendor, you are a partner?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to give away all my secrets, but
Yeah.
I will say, like, what makes us stand apart or stand alone is it's not going to sound like any secret sauce. First off, it is response time. I believe in
I cannot agree.
I believe in a 24/7 mentality. Like, obviously, yes, I think I do really well in separating personal and work life, but I do work relentlessly hard, and my team kind of shares the same mentality to the point where, like, you know, if you want to get something live, you know, tomorrow, and you text me today on a Sunday,
So needed
like,
yesterday industry.
yes, it is. And, like, unfortunately, there's that cliche of a 2-week turnaround time. Sure, I'll have this back to you in 7 to 10 business days. And I personally have tried to make Quan, it's not people work for me, they work with me. So it's collectively, you know, we're successful, my team is successful. And, you know, I'll leave it at that because it is a little bit more personal that way. But I do believe in really hiring and building a team that shares true passion for the brands that they work with and helping them see success, not get a signed authorization and say, oh, wow, this is a great campaign. It's a lot of money. Like, we need these campaigns to perform, and we need them to perform well. And that way the brands will see out of home as a channel they should continue to invest in. I think, obviously, response time. I think the way that we think about out of home, we are out of home nerds. I just have not, this is not on purpose, but I've not hired anyone entry level yet. Like, everyone on my team is ex-holding company. And as such, we've all worked on some of the biggest brands out there: Spotify, Coke, JetBlue, Royal Caribbean,
Right.
Disney. Like, we know every market inside out. We know the media partners in those markets. We don't plan the cliche way. If there are going to be times when a brand should be on a board outside of Penn Station, awesome. There are going to be times when a brand should be in Soho in New York City, cool. But we're thinking, you know, more outside the lines of, like, oh, you want to reach an audience out east? Sure, you can go ahead and wrap the Hampton Chippy, which I do love, by the way. Or if you're trying to reach a high net worth audience of law makers and, you know, decision makers, what about branding 2-blade seaplanes and branding the boats in Sag Harbor and having signage in the lounge and incorporating a newsletter? Oh, wow, that makes sense, and that's pretty amazing. And then we did that.
Right.
And not many other agencies, if any, have done that. So I think that kind of blends into your second question. Like, the way that we plan is, like, we digest a brief. We want to know audience. We want to know what your KPIs are, where you want to be. And then we do have the tools in-house that allow us to build out heat maps that show indexing for certain audiences. Obviously, that anecdotal expertise. Big believer in ad tech, big believer in AI. It's going to only help the industry, you know. But at the end of the day, if you are a brand and you are working with an out-of-home partner that has zero out-of-home expertise, and you could figure that out by going to their LinkedIn page. Just check it out. That's it. And I'll leave it at that. Like, you're doing yourself a disservice. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And anything else.
It's
Like,
just so fragmented that, like,
Yes.
it takes a lot of time to figure out what the nooks and crannies, and that's where the arbitrage and the alpha is.
well, I mean, we literally turned around a massive 6-market plus international campaign for a new brand that we're very excited about in, I don't know, 3 days the other week, because you had myself, Ashley, Brandon, and Marta all just be like, let's do it, let's crank it. We know exactly what we need. We pressed our media partners. We had a lot of information already in-house, and we built out this gorgeous deck and recommendation. Client was thrilled. And, like, that is what we can do that I just don't feel others can. Maybe some can, awesome. But, like, sure, there are going to be times where we need that week, where we need that 10 days, but we'll ask the brand, and they'll probably agree. But then there's going to be other times when Swedish House Mafia wants to live stream a concert onto a board in Times Square, and they're telling me 2 days before, and we're like, oh, sure, we'll make that happen. Not even because we want the revenue, because we want to be friends with Swedish House Mafia, but we did it, and it's awesome. And it was one of the first projects that we ever did at Quan was, partnering with the amazing people at Mischief and No Fixed Address when they were working with Aura, and it was the election of 2020, and they're like, we want to put the real-time number of hours people lost sleep during the election onto one Times Square. I think they told me on Saturday or Sunday, and we were live on Tuesday.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just what we do.
Yeah. You're the closest thing to digital that out of home.
Yeah, we're human programmatic people. That's it.
So I want to talk a little bit about how out of home has changed over your career. Because obviously, Max and I have been in the space for 4 or 5 years. A lot has changed even in those 4 or 5 years. You've had more exposure to it over the long term. What are the big things that have changed in the industry since you've been in it?
I mean, first, I think it's like the way out of home is like looked at from an impression standpoint. It was like DEC, like 50,000 cars go by this billboard. Now, obviously, we have GeoPath, which is still a little bit of an issue, but we'll figure that out. So, you can kind of understand impressions based on demo and persona, which is great. Obviously, measurement, there was none of that. And now through top of funnel brand lift studies, the lower funnel, tracking drive to site, drive to store, app downloads, sales lift, like, again, not a perfect science, but enough where you can really prove out efficiency.
Right.
That's a big thing. And then I do think like overall, like speed and excitement of like out of home opportunities, the networks that are out there are like full motion digital out of home that do allow you to tap into APIs and live stream and incorporate, real time data and consumer info. And just like the fun networks, I mentioned Blade before, but like being able to do things like that, or then advertise, on city bike stations, or just, you want to hit a high net worth individual at gyms. You don't have to buy New York Sports Club. You can actually buy the network that Lifetime represents. So that's what excites trucks. Or hey, I mean, we share so many of the same brands. So every other brand that we work with asks for trucks. So, yeah.
All right, I want to wrap up.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On measurement. So we kind of came into the industry at the same time.
Yeah.
Reveal and Street Metrics did, and when that became more and more popular, and we've seen it grow, but we still have conversations with many of the large holding companies in particular, and many of our larger brand partners that are not interested in needing the measurement aspect of it. Right. So my question to you is, I guess first, what percentage of your clients are desiring that? Like, they want attribution. How many of
I would say 80% of the brands we work with ask for some form of measurement.
80?
Yeah, 80%.
Yeah.
And look, I love an awareness plan better than anyone. I think that we crush it. No one builds an awareness campaign, I think, like Quan does, but like that's not the reality of the brands we work with. They need some sort of measurement. So it is great to like work with a partner like Reveal or M4, or a creative like, to be able to tap into some sort of solution for brands. And then we're very upfront and honest. If we feel like a brand is not spending enough or the impressions aren't there, we'll tell them and we'll say, look, we think this will move the needle, but like, the one thing that brands can't do is look at out of home the same way they look at other channels. We've had brands that are like, well, this isn't the same way that like we measure meta, and I'm like, then you should hold off on spending it out of home.
Yeah, I agree.
Last question: what do brands get wrong about out of home?
That they think that they need to like look at it the same way as every other channel. That it's just awareness. That it takes 6 months to put together a plan. That there's a 7-week turnaround time. That it's just billboards and wild postings. Like, you could be the smartest brand marketer in the world. You went to Wharton and have no experience with out of home. Just like don't come in and start to make assumptions. Like ask the questions, because you can go live this week if you get me creative tomorrow. Like, it can be measured. And at the same time, like, give it time if you're testing the channel. Like, don't just make assumptions. If a campaign runs and it doesn't perform, don't say, well, this channel's not going to work for me. Let's find out why. Let's find out how we can kind of optimize next time. Right. I will say that, like, 8.5 out of 10 campaigns that are measured by us perform really well. It's not 100% naturally, but like, I think that lends itself to our experience and anecdotal expertise, but like we really think long and hard when we're putting together a plan about what's really going to move the needle, what's really going to work for this brand, and then when we get back to the results and see that, it's super valid. Yeah.
Partner and extension, not a vendor.
Yeah, we did a great collaborative article with Vistar, who's a programmatic partner, and Prize Picks is one of our big brands that we work with on the success of their out of home that they've ran, which has been a hybrid of traditional and programmatic out of home, and it's just crushing. They're crushing, and they're in such a competitive space, and that's exciting. That's like a brand that's like, hey, we want to work with you to push out word that out of home is really working for us. So that's the end goal for us with any brand.
And I think what we don't talk about enough is your partners like us want to work with you for the same reason.
Totally.
Like you play to get it on both sides. I think people kind of forget about that component.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly why every time that we're doing kind of like a campaign, it's like, we want to work with Tom and Max, we want to work with Agile, like, they get it. You guys have kind of redefined and defined what it is to do truck side advertising and have woven in measurement and attribution, and that's why it's become such a big part of brands that we work with, media plans. So it's kind of nice when you have that lockstep relationship with a media partner, because at the end of the day, we all just want brands to succeed. We're not trying to compete for dollars. So.
Stop number 3, the hot box. Ryan Rappaport, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Give up email or give up Slack?
Give up Slack.
Cold plunge or hot tub?
Hot tub.
Sweet snacks or salty snacks?
Sweet.
Sampling in-store or influencer unboxing?
Sampling in-store.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Canva or Figma?
Oh, Figma.
Winter or summer?
Oh, wait, Canva. Because I want to work with them. Winter or summer? Summer, birthday.
Protein or fiber?
Protein.
Telepathy or teleportation?
Teleportation.
Neat or messy?
Neat.
DTC or D2C?
D2C.
Roulette, red or black?
Red.
In-house or outsourced?
Outsourced.
Board game or video game?
Video game.
Spotify podcast or Substack deep dive?
Spotify podcast.
Beach house or ski house?
Beach house.
Work remote or return to office?
Return to office.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunrise.
Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok.
Oh my God, Twitter.
Yeah, we know that. Pineapple pizza or candy corn?
Oh, pineapple pizza. I guess 'cause I like pizza.
Live music or DJ?
Oh, live music, because then you could get a DJ that's a lunch. So
Hey, that wasn't the question.
okay, go.
Advertisement or advertisement?
Advertising.
Call, text, or audio note?
Text.
Give up bread or cheese for life?
Oh no. Cheese.
Air guitar or air drums?
Air guitar.
Start early or leave late?
Leave late.
This
This is a tough one for Brian.
Trucks or billboards?
Trucks. Trucks.
Receive good news or bad news first?
First, the good news.
All right, well, the good news is we've come to the final stop on our wrap today. Ryan, thank you so much.
Thank you for
joining us.
having me, guys. It's like talking to friends. It's
Yeah,
great.
totally.
It is talking to friends.
Final stop, where can people find you? Where can they find Quan?
Okay, you can find me at brappy55 on Twitter, Instagram. You can find Quan, quanmediagroup.com website. You'll find us on Instagram. We just started doing TikTok, also at brappy55. So you'll find us. Come find me.
Love you, man. Thanks so much for joining
Thank you
us.
guys for having me.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, guys.